let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. Oh, I see Arapahoe County, Colorado's on. Hi to Colorado. Welcome to this webinar in the DAP Learning Series. This is a little bit different than usual. If you've attended our webinars before, you don't usually get to see our faces. So hello, changing things up today. My name is Tim Lowden. I'm the program manager for the Digital Analytics program, and I'm very, very excited today for us to be offering this session with our special guest, Nick Pjontek, who is the manager for the analytics team at Canada.ca. A couple things before we get started. So number one, basically the structure of the way that this webinar is going to go is there'll be a little bit of a presentation where Nick's going to give you some background of how his team works at Canada.ca and Service Canada. Then we'll have a discussion where I'll be sort of informally chatting with Nick about some questions about their strategy and how they do things in the Canadian government versus kind of the ways that some of you might be used to if you were working in the federal government here in the US. And finally, it'll be a Q&A section from you all. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat anytime during the session. I will relay them to Nick when we get to that section towards the end of the discussion. And also, as always, we will be sending a follow-up after this is done with a link to a survey. And I think at the end of the session, we'll also have it in the chat box. Please fill out the survey. Let us know what you thought of this session. If we should do more things like this, we could reach out to potentially other governments and try to get insight from them as well. So we really would appreciate your feedback. But with that, let us get to the meat of the session. As I noted, we're very excited to have Nick Pjontek here with us, and I'm going to kick it over to him if he wants to start his presentation, and he's going to give you some background about analytics on Canada.ca, and then we'll get into questions.
Thanks so much, Tim. I really appreciate it, and it's great to be here. I'm really excited for this, and hopefully I share some information that is worthwhile for everyone. So I'm just going to share a quick presentation that we've created here just to provide an overview of our team. There we go. I'm from the Canada.ca Analytics team. Canada.ca is the main web presence for the Government of Canada. Not all of our departments are on Canada.ca, but the big players are. So the majority of the traffic is going through Canada.ca. The Canada.ca website is kind of overseen by an organization called Principal Publisher here in Canada. Principal Publisher is part of Service Canada, alongside the phone channel and the in-person centers, so 1-800-NO-CANADA and the Service Canada centers. Principal Publisher is really there to support departments in operating and managing Canada.ca. We basically provide institutions with a suite of GC-wide products and services. And these boxes on the right here kind of illustrate some of them. So we're the ones who are managing the web content management system for Canada.ca. We provide an analytics solution. We've created a newsroom where all Government of Canada news releases go through. We also provide Hootsuite to the entire Government of Canada. We have a search engine that's provided for the entire Government of Canada. We run a client experience survey for everyone, so that performance is measured consistently. We also have our web experience toolkit, which is, and I'm probably not going to explain this properly, but it's basically the development framework that it's basically open source and anybody can use this for their website. And to have invitations on websites, you can have multiple concurrent invitations on a site without interrupting people's visits. Lastly, we take on some custom web projects if departments see an opportunity for something. itself is really seen as the Government Canada's Web Analytics Center of Expertise. So our focus is really to operate the web analytics solution for the GC. And right now that solution is Adobe Analytics, and we have option years for that tool until 2023. After which we'll be looking to see what our options are, and we'll kind of specify what tool it is. So going forward, we'll always be providing an analytics solution, but right now it's Adobe Analytics. What's interesting for us is our web analytics solution can be used on internet websites across the Government of Canada, both secure and non-secure. People are using it on their intranet, so they have one tool for both their intranets and internet websites. We haven't done this yet, but it can also be used for native mobile applications and voice applications. There just doesn't seem to be a demand there yet for the Government of Canada. You might be asking yourself, well, how does the Canada.ca team structured? Basically, we have three groups. One is configuration and onboarding. What this group does is they're the ones who are configuring Adobe Analytics for the Government of Canada, and they also help departments install Adobe Analytics on GC websites. The second group is reporting and analysis. So this group, its main focus is to get value out of the data, make use of the data. They are the team that is doing GC-wide reporting and providing support to our users because they are experts in reporting and making use of the data. The last group is training and engagement. They are managing our Government of Canada Web Analytics training program, and they're also chairing our digital analytics community of practice across the Government of Canada. Right now, we're sitting at about a team of 15, which includes myself as the manager. We have 3 team leads and 11 team members, which is a mix of employees, contractors, and students. We are currently hiring some more, so we're set to be 19 in the fall. So we continue to grow. I've mentioned some of these already, but to give you a sense of what this team does, we do configure Adobe Analytics for use by the Government of Canada. We also provide Adobe Analytics on a cost recovery basis so that departments can use it on non-Canada.ca websites. So basically it can be used on any Government of Canada website. We provide 2 training courses at the moment. One is a Introduction to Web Analytics, which is a half-day course meant for anybody in the Government of Canada that wants to learn about web analytics. And then we have a 2-day Adobe Analytics user training course, which is a mandatory course if someone wants to have a Adobe Analytics account with us. Of course, we provide technical and reporting support. We also provide GC-wide reporting and analysis. And as I've kind of alluded in my earlier slide, we are the team that manages the Canada.ca Client Experience Survey, along with the Canada.ca Invitation Manager. And lastly, we chair the Digital Analytics Community of Practice. So to give you a sense of what the Digital Analytics Community of Practice is, it's basically a community that's open to any digital analytics practitioner within the Government of Canada. Its members are kind of working together to improve digital analytics so that we can continuously improve our online presence. Right now we have 4 regular meetings. We have one that's focused on change management, where if ever there's change requests related to analytics, this committee basically endorses those change requests and also provides input if we're looking for configuration input. We have regular release demonstrations in terms of what has recently been released with regards to enhancement, fixes, or maintenance. We have another meeting on getting value out of analytics, where the discussion is really focused on what can we do to get some value out of the data. And for us, we define value as going from data to insight to action to some form of an outcome or a result. And then lastly, we've recently kicked off the International Digital Analytics Forum, which Tim is a member of. where we are meeting with other countries on a quarterly basis just to share what is going on with our analytics projects and learn from each other. And hopefully that will come to a point where we are collaborating very closely on some files and working to achieve shared outcomes. Within the Government of Canada, each institution has 1 or 2 people identified as their institutional analytics representative. These people, for us, they are the ones that are providing the Tier 1 analytics support for their institution. We take care of Tier 2, and then Tier 3 is Adobe. These representatives also support us on analytics related projects and activities, kind of chipping in some effort where possible. They of course participate in our community meetings, and one of their responsibilities is to brief up to make sure that their management is aware of what's going on. So I wanted to give you a sense of what are some of the priorities that are going on for us right now. So if we look at the configuration and onboarding side of things, we have 2 big priorities right now, which is migrating to Adobe Launch. Adobe Launch is Adobe's new tag manager. They used to use a product called DTM, Dynamic Tag Management, but that is now sunsetting. So we're moving all of our websites to Adobe Launch. Right now we're looking at 70 websites, which is a nice undertaking for us. All that has to be done before March 31st for us. We're also trying to increase adoption of Adobe Analytics on non-Canada.ca websites. So we're trying to speak to departments that are currently not using Adobe Analytics and seeing if they are interested to do so. With regards to reporting and analysis, some of the priorities right now, of course, you can imagine we're doing a lot of COVID reporting. We're also working to enhance our client experience survey so that it can be used on any GC website. And in fact, we have our policy center, Treasury Board Secretariat, that is on board with asking all departments or making it a requirement to have this survey on all websites. So for the first time, we're going to have consistent performance data measured the exact same way, all in one data center, and it's going to be a big deal for us. Third, we are exploring ways to report on that survey data, just to see how we can get that in the hands of senior management in a format that works for them. Next, we've created a invitation manager for non-Canada.ca websites. So this is a priority for us right now. We want a tool that will allow departments to manage survey and UX study invitations on their website so that they can get the participation they need without annoying users on their website. What's fun about this project, we're doing this in an open source environment on GitHub with the intention that anybody can use this, any country could use this and contribute. So it should be fun to see how that progresses. Another project or priority we have is we're creating this page analytics lookup tool. It's basically a page online that you can put any URL on Canada.ca and just click go, and you will get analytics for that page for the last 30 days. It's basically leveraging Adobe Analytics API and some caching, of course. And we're hoping that this will just further extend our reach of our data. And then one other priority is we put in place this experimentation process where on a regular basis, quarterly basis, we are meeting to brainstorm what experiments we'd like to run or what things we'd like to try. And we're setting what projects we will work on and checking in regularly to see how those experiments are going. On the training and engagement side of things, one of our focuses right now is to improve our current courses and also seeing if there's a different way to deliver our training. We're finding that the 2-day mandatory course is not ideal for some of our users, so we're seeing if there's a different approach there. We're also looking to grant access to Google Search Console data to the entire Government of Canada, because right now it's very much so people that are part of Principal Publisher. We're also looking to roll out Analysis Workspace, which is I don't think I can use the word new anymore, but it's the latest interface for Adobe Analytics, which is a drag and drop environment to create reports and dashboards. It's quite nice. I like where it's heading, and we're just making sure that all of our users have access to it by default. We're also taking a look to see if we can get some storytelling experts in to provide a training session for the entire government of Canada. And as I mentioned, we are trying to grow the digital analytics forum internationally with various countries. Right now we have the US, the UK, Australia, and Canada who are on board. And we're talking to Ireland, New Zealand, Belgium, Norway, and hopefully they'll be on board soon. Last few projects, every year we do a satisfaction survey with our users. So we are basically analyzing those results and seeing what our priorities are going to be to focus on based on that feedback. We're also aiming to do a landscape survey just to see what's the analytics landscape across the government of Canada in terms of resources, tools being used, etc. And we've kicked off once again some one-on-one meetings with institutions so we can constantly be talking to our internal clients and have a really good pulse of what their needs and expectations are. So that kind of wraps it up in terms of an overview. I'll pass it back to Tim in case there's some questions you want to ask.
There are definitely questions I want to ask. So for everyone who's tuning in, from the U.S. federal government right now, I think the thing that strikes me about that presentation is like, wow, I wish we could all be that organized. I think that, we all have there are certain things that are certainly constraints in every organization, but one of the things that I noticed is, you've got, from my perspective, a relatively large team, and with really designated roles. You've got implementation folks, you've got reporting folks, you've got training folks, and I think that is heavily facilitated by the fact that you have a more centralized presence. You have Canada.ca. And I know when I first got hired into government, everyone was talking about gov.uk and how they consolidated all of their various sites into a centralized area. So I should say for the crowd, I sent Nick some questions I was probably going to ask him beforehand, and I'm going to go off course right off the bat. So,
oh, here we go. Okay.
I guess one of the things that I just wanted to ask was, like, not that the U.S. government, I don't think the U.S. government is at a place right now where it would be a logical lift, because we're so widespread, and the DAP program operates so differently because there's just so many different agencies and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of domains. We have 5,800 individual domains that are participating in DAP right now. But like that centralized site being able to facilitate more centralized and focused teams is really something I feel envious of. So one of the questions I had was, number one, can you tell me a little bit more about, I know you mentioned that some sites, there are some Government of Canada sites that are not on Canada.ca, that haven't been centralized. And what I guess is the dividing line for whether or not they're part of Canada.ca or they're not? And are there plans to eventually fold everyone into Canada.ca, or how does that division work?
So at first, with the project that kind of aimed to create one website for all, the idea was that everyone was going to migrate, and that was mandatory for everyone to do. But due to various reasons, after several years, it became apparent that was not going to be possible. So the focus kind of shifted, and departments are no longer required to onboard to Canada.ca. It is optional for them, right? Onboarding to Canada.ca comes with great benefits. They don't have to worry about configuring a CMS anymore, right? They can benefit from a content delivery network, which is boasting 100% uptime since 2015, which is never before seen, right, for the government of Canada.
Wow.
Like a lot of the departments have downtime, and in our case, we're up constantly. So it's left to departments to decide if they want to sign up for that service.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Sort of along those lines, like in the sense that your team is the central analytics team for the government of Canada. Like, can you talk a little bit more about what kind of governance or authority you all have? Like, I'm comparing this in the sense that, with the digital analytics program, because we're based out of GSA, one agency, and we have our product that any agency can use, but because of the structure of it, we still encourage other agencies to sort of have their own independent analytics implementations. Is your situation one in which, obviously Canada.ca has your Adobe, implemented there, like, other than the points of contact that you all have that are sort of like the tier one folks, is
Yeah.
your authority pretty much cascading down the entire government?
So authority is a good question. I think the way, like, what I would say there is our authority is quite straightforward in that we have the authority to provide an analytics tool as a service, and we have the authority to cost recover. Everything else, when it comes to guidance or policy, we don't have necessarily authority there. What kicks in there is our expertise, right? So we may have influence, but we definitely don't have that power to kind of dictate what people do.
Interesting. Okay, so it ends up, when you were talking about sort of your goals that go from collection of data to analysis of data to getting an actual outcome at the end
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
that's not something that's always necessarily guaranteed if your team presents data and says, hey, we think
Exactly.
you should do this. Okay.
For example, this client experience survey that we are investing in, we don't have the power to say, okay, departments, thou shalt put this on your website. Hence why we're partnering up with the Treasury Board Secretariat, because they can ask departments to do that.
Okay, that's fascinating. So dovetailing on that, when it comes to the sort of moving towards the action aspect, one of the things that I always talk about in our trainings is that, as you're familiar with, the DAP program uses Google Analytics, you all use Adobe, but regardless of the program for web analytics you're using, one of the things I'm always saying is that web analytics tools are just one aspect of sort of all the things you need to do to translate data into action. So can you tell us more about what sort of your analytics suite looks like that you have access to in terms of things like heat mapping, A/B testing, and so on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now it's a very, very simple answer in that it's primarily Adobe Analytics, which comes with web-based reporting interfaces. It also comes with the ability to connect to Excel to create Excel dashboards. That's a tool called Report Builder. It has a website overlay tool called Activity Map. And then it has a data warehouse where you can get into really granular data requests. Besides that, the other data sources we have is the Google and Bing search consoles. We're just getting into A/B testing in that we've procured Adobe's A/B testing tool called Target. Target allows us to do personalization and do A/B testing. But that's kind of where we're at right now. There are two spaces that I'm kind of looking into a bit more, but I don't see that being too quick. I think one space is are there other data sources that we can benefit from? At one point, I was looking into ComScore, but I mean, our research is kind of highlighting some potential issues with that product. But the other suite of tools that I'm kind of looking at is, once we've identified issues on the site or problematic areas with analytics or with this survey data, is there a suite of tools that I can procure and make available for the Government of Canada that will help people do UX testing, or are there UX design tools that I can simplify that procurement process for departments and make available at a lower cost potentially, right? So that's where my attention is at going forward, probably.
Absolutely. Cool. How about, one of the questions that I think we get a lot, and that is I know it's very difficult to answer, is like, we get folks that come to us and they say, like, if I'm new to this and I just need, like, I'm just starting and I want to, like, look at 3 metrics, like, what are the metrics I should look at? And my response to that is often like, I can't really tell you unless I do some strategy stuff. But being that Canada.ca is a more centralized site, are there specific outcomes or metrics or user actions that the Government of Canada is particularly interested in tracking or analyzing?
Yeah, so it's a very complex question. I think you're right. I think you really need to look at the situation you're trying to analyze to figure out what it is you want to focus on. But if I were to kind of make general conclusions or kind of try to summarize what some of the points may be across the board, I think focusing on the user's experience is probably true. I also think focusing on key performance indicators and not like just identifying those key ones for whatever you're trying to analyze. I want to go back to the client experience or the user experience. Lately, the way we've been thinking about it is, first and foremost, can someone actually complete the reason of their visit? But just like that, task completion isn't sufficient. You gotta look at another component of the user experience, because the example that I keep coming back to is public transit, right? Like I can take public transit to get to my workplace or my house. I've completed my task, but I may not be happy with my experience, right? You need to look at more than task completion. And what that is will depend on what content you're analyzing. If it's content with forms, it might be form errors, right? Like if they might be able to complete their task, but they're getting a ton of form errors that's making it inefficient or just driving them crazy, right? So I think you have to adapt yourself to your situation. Bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about that all the time as well. Is like, especially as a government, a lot of times, literally the task completion, it may be the only place that task can be completed. Like they can't go to a private sector company. There's no competition. They have to complete this thing through the government. So just getting it completed isn't always telling you the full story. So I'm glad we're on the same page with that one. I have more questions, but I see that there's a fair amount coming in here, and I want to make sure that I can ask the questions from the crowd. So I will try to work mine more in, but I'm going to start asking the ones from the crowd. First, I want to address the person who is asking for the slides. As long as we get Nick's blessing, I will send the slides out afterward.
Blessing provided.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll send the slides out in a follow-up email to everyone who is registered, so that for that person that asked that. Okay, so one person wrote in, can you give more details about the page analytics tool? What outline of questions being used that's relevant? As in, this person says, is it across multiple pages or a singular page?
Okay, so singular page. So you basically get to the tool, you put in the URL that you're looking to get data for, you click go, it loads from the API data for that page and displays it. It's really looking at, for the most part, what's the traffic to that page, gives you information around who's accessing that page geographically, from what device, where are they coming from, both from a referrer point of view, or what were the previous pages before that page. And it's looking at what are people doing on that page. So what are they clicking on, right? And so to me, that's like a nice, rich information set that allows you to see, okay, what's going on this page without having to go to an analytics guru and say, okay, can you pull these things for me, right? I'm also hoping that page is going to make that call to say, hey, you can talk to your analytics representative and see what kind of analysis they can do for you.
And is the intent of this then that it'll be available to folks beyond the ones who get the mandatory training in order to have an Adobe Analytics account, because that's a lot more complex?
Yeah, so the tool is going to be on Canada.ca. You will be able to get
It's
data. Public, fully
Oh
public.
man.
Yeah, so
Ooh.
I don't anticipate, I think the majority of the people who are going to use this tool is going to be within the government of Canada. You might get media using it. I don't think the general public is going to use it. But yeah, that's the intent there.
That's really cool. That's fascinating because, obviously on our side, we manage analytics.usa.gov, which is the sort of public place, but it's not dynamic in the sense that you're talking about, where you can do like a search for a specific URL. So it's different, but exciting. I'm excited to see you roll that out and play with it myself. And I know, actually, I've mentioned to Nick before, but for the folks on the line, I don't think they would be mad for me saying this, but I think CDC in the U.S. government has built something very similar, although it's only available to their employees. So yeah, things to think about in the future. If that ends up being something that is really valuable, maybe we could look into trying to replicate.
The biggest challenge is really trying to not hit our API call limit for that project. That's the biggest challenge.
Which is the same problem we have with our public dashboard as well. Yeah. The APIs, the API limits. Okay, what else do we have here? Somebody wrote in, the one website strategy has both pros and cons. In your opinion, what are the main cons?
Oof. What are the main cons? Nothing's coming to mind. I think if I put myself in the shoes of departments, you're probably losing you're losing a bit of flexibility, right? Because now it's one tool for the entire government. So, whereas if you were managing your own tools, you have a bit more power there. That's one thing that I can think of for sure.
I guess in some senses, maybe like in terms of processes, you're kind of bound to, like, the CMS is going to get chosen by probably somebody above the department level because it's such an umbrella site.
Correct.
Like, it maybe takes a little bit of acquisition flexibility away from you in that sense.
Yeah, the reality is too that Canada.ca can't do everything, right? Departments still have a lot of other websites that go into the transactional world or the secure space, right? So they are, while they have a presence on Canada.ca, a lot of them still have their own transactional sites. So for example, the Canada Revenue Agency, which takes care of all the taxes, their full presence is on Canada.ca, but they still have their My CRA account where people log in and submit their tax forms, right? So that's hopefully illustrating how things are working right now.
Sure, yeah. So still some need for things to be sort of out of the...
Yeah, it does come with a ton of benefits. But I know that's not the question, so I will refrain.
Well, let me just ask you what you think the benefits are. To be honest, I don't know how long you've been with the GC, but were you here through the transition?
Yes. Yeah, so I've been with the Government of Canada since 2008, I believe. And the transition started in 2015. So some of the benefits are cost savings. Like, you don't have to do a ton of procurement across the entire government of Canada. you get a common skill set across the GC. So if one department is requiring help, another department can chip in, right? Which happened with COVID, right? Like our like Health Canada required assistance, and departments chipped in and got the job done. You have centralized training. With regards to analytics, you have finally, because all our data is in one report suite, you can see end to end what that experience is from Canada.ca to other departmental websites without losing that connection. So, and governance, of course, is a huge plus.
I think from an analytics perspective, that is a huge benefit, especially with, you know, the most recent news about how third-party cookies are really on their way out. Cross-domain tracking is not something that that we do with the digital analytics program. We can do sort of cross subdomain tracking where there's not a break of the session, but we can't do true cross-domain tracking. And the reality is there's just so many domains that are often very similar. Like the user journey might actually take you from, you know, some sort of like the first thing that's popping to mind is you might be on USDA.gov and it'll take you to farmers.gov, for example. Mm-hmm. And that might be part of a user journey, but you're just getting the referral data from USDA. You're not getting the full picture. And so I can see how having that central site would really give you, in terms of the broad scope of user action and flow, despite the fact that, you know, with our tool, with Google Analytics, behavior flow gets very complicated very fast. I can see how if you had good ways of trying to follow that, it would help you understand. Yeah. That kind of maybe segues into the next question. Somebody asked, what benefits do you see with Adobe Analytics? And I want to make a disclaimer here that we're not recommending any tools. Canada.ca uses the tool they use. We use the tool we use. Yeah. That could change at any time. But this person is specifically asking if there are parts of Adobe Analytics that you are particularly fond of.
Yeah. So, and this is my own personal opinion, not the opinion of the government of Canada. I love how we're just doing disclaimers before we go into this. So some of the things that I particularly love is how customizable it is to configure data collection. I also love the segmentation capabilities. Like, it's very powerful how you can slice and dice that data. And the last thing I'll say is this new analysis workspace interface. Like these days, I'm less familiar with what Google is up to, but I do think it's an interface that's totally different than what I've seen previously. I will say like generally speaking, the feedback we're getting is Google Analytics is easier for users to use, whereas Adobe Analytics, it does require a bit more investment. If you're not in the tool all the time, you have a higher chance of pulling data that is not correct. So that's one drawback. But I have to say, like, both Google and Adobe Analytics seem to be the industry leaders these days. So it's you can't go wrong either way.
Yeah, I want to touch on one of the things you said right there regarding, you know, potential for an inexperienced user or just from user error, like getting a report and drawing insights that may not actually be true. Mm-hmm. So something I know that one of the reasons we have the training program that we have, where we try to offer our webinars so often, is because our sort of mentality is we want to democratize data as much as possible. And so we have a lot of users into the DAP Google Analytics account has like over 3,000 individual users. But the swinging of the pendulum with that is like anybody or a lot of folks have access to the data, but also one of the worst fears is you don't want people accidentally misusing it. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to place blame on anyone there. It happens to all of us. But like, there are times where if you don't know weird caveats about how a certain metric or dimension works, or you mix up the reporting a little bit, you end up getting results that maybe are not true. So do you feel like, you know, you were talking about the training that you do. Do you feel like that training, that mandatory training has really helped that? That's part one. And then part two is, with regard to the you know, the analysis aspect, and I know that you had said that you were trying to do training on storytelling. I'd love for you to talk about how you feel, like what kinds of pushback or barriers that you've seen happen to folks when they try to do storytelling based on data and seek action. That was a lot packed into 2 sections of the question.
let's start with the first one. I think I'm on the same page with you with regards to what you said. There's always the chance that someone is going to use the wrong data to make a decision. So it's about minimizing it, or it's about minimizing that risk, right? So the 2-day mandatory training is not enough. I personally think we need to do more. We need to think about what is the overall learning experience. Because right now it's 2 days and then you're off and doing your own thing, right? I think it needs to be a bit more of a journey. I think it's about creating different types of access potentially. You know, having full-blown access for folks who are truly experts, but creating spaces for people who might have a little less knowledge or a little less expertise, to feel a little safer, but and pull up the right data, right? So maybe there's a way to create templates or dashboards that are kind of preset, that they can just change a few settings and off you go. You get your own thing, which is what I like about the page analytics tool. That's going to help a lot. Plus, you get the information as soon as you want it, right? You just got to request it right away.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, in the sense that, you know, you've got like, the people call it different things, like a snack versus a bite versus a meal or whatever, or walk, crawl, run, that kind of thing.
Yes.
I feel like there's a certain strata of users that will benefit greatly from the tool that you're building, that will give data to a point that's not super complex maybe, but give them an idea and basically remove all the possibility of user error.
Yeah.
And then for the folks that really need to get beyond that, those are the ones who can train and get into the more complex reporting.
Yeah, one of the functionalities we're looking at with Adobe Analytics is they allow us to create to curate kind of spaces. So let's say someone is interested in downloads or outbound links or online forms, right? Like, well, we can create a space where they only have access to the dimensions and the events that are applicable to that data, so that they can't use the wrong stuff.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
that's a neat feature.
Mm-hmm.
We have some questions in here. I want to consolidate 2 questions that are about the surveys, but before we get to your surveys, I wanted you to maybe tell us a little bit about, and I'm going to speak very broadly here, we won't get even into individual companies or brands here, but tag management in general. So I know you all said you're transitioning right now to a new tag manager. In the US government, we've certainly seen a really, really exponential increase of folks using tag managers, but I still think it's something that is not, I wouldn't even say it's probably at 50% of sites yet, although we're seeing it increase a lot. Can you tell us about how using tag managers has either created more efficiencies or allowed you to do more of the work that you're looking to do?
Yeah, sure. I can't speak too much on the the details of what it's allowed us to do, because I'm not in it constantly. But I definitely get the sense from the team that this new tag manager has a lot of potential in terms of simplifying how we do things, and also providing some additional functionality. It also seems to have a great deal of power in terms of building that flow, or that build process. So there's a lot of flexibility there. For me, the biggest thing that a tag manager is allowing us to do is it's basically decoupling us from the release process of the website, right? Like, the website can do its thing, release its functionality, and we can have our own release process without being tied to that. So that's nice.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits. I agree, is that especially in an environment where on our side, where we have like so many different domains that are often being managed by contractor teams, there's a lot of times when we'll be discussing an issue with an analytics, with an analytics issue with an agency or a team, and we'll say, I think you need to change this or tweak this, and they'll say, well, we only have like 4 releases a year, so we'll put that in for our next one. And that's really unfortunate. I mean, it's certainly unfortunate in general if you only have 4 releases a year, but the fact that those changes can't be made is really, it's for such a long time, is difficult. So that's what's something I totally agree on with tag managers, that I have found, you put the power in the hands of people to make changes instantly, and they don't have to be developers once you sort of learn the tag manager system, which is a learning curve of its own. It's not necessarily like someone who has to know a lot of coding to be able to adjust it. Point of personal plug, we've done a tag manager training before, and I'm putting the link in the chat box now. So
Gotta take every opportunity.
Yeah. So we've had a couple questions about your surveys here.
Sure.
The first one was asking if I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to scroll up. I'm pretty sure it just said, is it possible for us to see the survey? Is your client experience survey available? But then beyond that, somebody's asking, do all users get surveyed, or if not, what percentage? And they're kind of asking things about your completion rates and the percentage of folks that actually agree to take the survey.
Sure. So I'll start trickling information as it comes. So maybe as I go, if there's something people really want to hear, just put it into the chat. I am very happy to share whatever information you like on our survey. The way it works is we use our invitation manager to invite people to take the survey. Right now, it's at a rate like 10% of visits or visitors get an invite. I don't have the conversion rate or how many people say yes to that. I can definitely get that number. I just wouldn't want to lead you in error there, but I'd be happy to send that to Tim to send outwards afterwards. So basically, when they come into the site, there's a complex algorithm that decides if you're going to get selected. If you get selected, you have the invitation. If you click yes, it will open a new window and basically let you know, please take the survey at the end of your visit. Okay, like complete what you were trying to do, and then come back and take the survey. The questionnaire itself is quite simple. It's, what was the reason for your visit? Were you able to complete the reason of your visit? How easy was it? And were you satisfied? Right. And then once they have basically answered those questions and have submitted the survey, on that thank you page, all that data gets collected in Adobe Analytics, which is very interesting for us because you got all that power, that functionality to analyze the data very quickly. You can slice and dice the data at the task level, at the department level, at the theme level, and government-wide. And fun part is that the survey data is tied to the visit data. So if there's a group of people that are saying, I can't do this task, you can pull the analytics for that task and see what pages were they on, what was their flow, where were they getting hung up, right?
Wow.
Is there anything that I'm missing there? You might have a sense of the
I don't think
questions.
so. I mean, I think that's really, really powerful. I guess my follow-up with that or to that would be, in my limited sort of interaction with survey stuff, and admittedly, it's not something that our team is handling right now, but I know one of the things that was always difficult was just making sure that you were achieving statistical significance, and sort of how long you could look at chunks of data to make sure that you had that significance. And is that all? I assume that's all considerations that you are making. Is it built into the program?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of work there. Right now, if they're looking at any time period for any given point, if it's less than 400, we kind of make it a point of saying, okay, well, this is inconclusive. You can't really use this data. But overall, we're getting to the tunes of 15,000 to 20,000 responses a month, right? So it's a good sampling.
Yeah.
No, and that's just Canada.ca. As we roll this out across the government of Canada, that number is just going to keep increasing, right? We're doing also a lot of work right now with some partners just to see if our survey design is creating some interesting issues with our data. So we're just running variants of the survey to see if we word it this way, what impact does it have? Or if we ask it this, what does that change, right, in terms of the results? So we're starting to take a bit more of a data science approach to it.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like A/B testing the survey content itself.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, I know we're almost coming up on time. One thing that I wanted to ask was, I know that from a previous conversation we had, that you all had been working on UTM guidelines, and I don't think that would be something that we could try to do from my level down through the U.S. government, but I think it would be very valuable for the individual folks who are on teams that use campaign parameters and UTM parameters to hear about the kinds of considerations you made or what kind of work you did around that. Can you speak a little on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, through our community, that topic kind of came up, and the general sense was like, our UTM reports are all over the place. These values are inconsistent, and sometimes even for the same campaign, the values inconsistent. So we kind of formed a working group with several departments, got them together to create some guidelines. And I can't stress, like, the word guidelines, I need to kind of stress, right? It's not a mandatory thing. It's an optional thing that people can use, but at least it's some kind of direction to say, here is what the UTM campaign should be. Here's what the medium or source or content should be. And here are examples for particular instances, right? So if it's email marketing, here's what it looks like. If it's search engine marketing, here's what it should look like. And it just sets standards in terms of, what type of characters are allowed, what values need to be present, etc. I'd be happy to share those with you.
I would love to see them, and maybe make something available for our community, because I think that's really, really relevant. I know Freddie and I are always talking a lot about the importance of UTM parameters, and I think that a lot of teams in the U.S. have also found, if you don't have some sort of pretty coordinated strategy, it's going to be messy, because especially in the sense of, I know for using them for Google Analytics, like even changing case will mess up, if you have an uppercase word and a lowercase word, it'll be two different rows of data for a campaign, which is kind of difficult. So we're definitely seeing folks that are saying we would love to see these in the comments.
A few more points on this, like the work continues, right? Like our guidelines are kind of expanding a bit lately. we've been asked to provide some guidance on how to use UTM codes for structured data for like Google and stuff like that. And the other thing we're working on right now is we're working to create a centralized UTM builder that will factor in the guidelines. So you just kind of click and off you go. The URL is created for you, and there's less human error. So.
Yes, awesome. That is something we've seen some folks do here as well, where they've sort of set up spreadsheets that, you know, basically only offer drop downs for you to pick certain categories, so that you can't mess it up as long as you follow it. Similar to the Google campaign URL builder, but with some parameters. Wow. Okay. Well, I feel like we covered a lot of stuff. It is 3:26, and I just want to again offer such a sincere and serious thank you for coming and taking the time to talk with us. I know that it's been really helpful for the folks on the line. I'm particularly happy that we have the relationship we do and be able to share things. And I look forward to working with you in the future. To everyone who was on the line, I'll try to follow up. So we already have the slides, so I can send those out. But I'll also see if I can wrangle from Nick some information about their UTM guidelines and send those afterward. So with that, we will wrap up. I know it's Thursday, so one more day left in the week. Hope everybody has a fantastic Friday and weekend. And thank you all for putting up with two bald white guys with glasses. Had to throw that in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Nick, thanks so much. We appreciate it, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Timothy, my friend, my pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.